Praise be to our Lord Jesus Christ, both now and forever. Amen. Reflect with me, dear brothers and sisters, on this day, the third Sunday in ordinary time, year A. The readings taken from the first reading from the book of Isaiah, Prophet Isaiah chapter 9, verses 1 to 4. Then the second reading from 1 Corinthians chapter 1, 10 to 13 and verse 17. And then the gospel reading from Matthew chapter 4, verses 12 to 23. And I entitled it, Christ is the light that dispels darkness. Christ is. In the first reading from Prophet Isaiah chapter 9, verses 1 to 4, we are presented with the prophecy of Isaiah as regards the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. These two places belong to the northern part of Israel, and these two places were destroyed by Assyrian invasions, especially during the reign of Tiglath-Pileser. As of the time of this prophecy, the people have lost all hope. But then came the prophecy of Isaiah to give hope to them, to tell them that when the light will shine upon them, when God will raise for himself a king, that they will rejoice again. And then immediately we go to the second reading from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, chapter 1, verses 10 to 13, and also verse 17. Here we see Paul writing to the Corinthians after he has received message from close family, from close people, with regard to the division, to dissension in Corinthian church. Now so many persons divided themselves. Some said they belong to Apollos, some they belong to Paul, some they belong to Cephas, and then some to Christ. And in correcting this very bad anomaly, St. Paul wrote to them, warning them and telling them, is Christ divided? Did we preach in our own name or in the name of Christ? In doing this, Paul was able to curb the division which was already evident in the Corinthian church, and to reconcile them back to that unity which Christ prayed for in John chapter 17. And now going immediately to the gospel reading, the gospel of St. Matthew chapter 4, verses 12 to 13. One thing first of all to remark here is that St. Matthew always makes allusion to prophecies in the Old Testament in his gospels. In doing this, he tries to convince the Jews, who are the primary audience of his gospel, that Jesus Christ is actually the Messiah which they have been waiting for. And in Jesus Christ we see the fulfillment of all the prophecies of the old. The law, the prophets, all point to Christ. And now today we see Christ fulfilling what Isaiah prophesied in the first reading of today. Actually, when David rose as king, he was concerned with only the southern kingdom, Judah. As such, that particular fulfillment of the prophecy was nowhere near. But then with the coming of Christ, we know that Christ was able to preach both to the Gentile and to the Jews. He was able to bring light both to the Gentile and to the Jews. And in doing this also, Christ called to himself some collaborators, those to help to make sure that the gospel message, that the light reaches to the ends of the earth. And that was why we see immediately in the gospel reading the call of the first four disciples, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. What then are we to take home from these readings? Number one, in Christ, we see the fulfillment of all the prophecies. Christ remains our model in everything. Christ came to give hope to the hopeless. Christ came to dispel the darkness of our lives. And that is why, in the second reading of today, St. Paul used Christ to dispel the darkness which came in the form of division in the Corinthian church. Here we see the Corinthians already trying to divide themselves. Some saying they belong to this, some belong to that. This is still applicable to us today in our different churches. Some persons will always say, I belong to this particular priest. I belong to this particular prophet. But then if we actually understand why we are called Christians, we should know that all our attention will be focused on Christ. My dear brothers and sisters in the Lord, today the church presents to us the need for us to always look up to Christ, the fulfillment of all the prophecies. With Christ we shall do bravery. With Christ our salvation is assured. Let us always look up to Christ in time of difficulty, in times of hardship. Christ has come.